5:30, and I always like to say this in respect to folks in time. I've learned that from former president, and she always start on time, and even I can learn something. Okay, basically, I think we all know each other around the table. This meeting of concern initiated, at least to me, through Vice President. So I'm going to ask the Vice President to kick it off, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. So part of why I reached out is during the budget process, we had talked about getting updates and stuff from code, and I had a few members who had reached out, and then a few members from the public who had requested, and I was like, well, this is a perfect time. We're kind of going through the first project, the big project that you had just done, to kind of give you a platform to talk about the work, the good works, and the restructuring that's been happening with code.
Well, great. So, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on this, because as you'll see, Steve handed out some numbers. As you'll see, they've been pretty busy, and I feel like we've made some pretty good progress. So I appreciate the opportunity to discuss where we are so far, and then some of the things we're thinking about for later this year and into next year too. So what you have is just a real basic snapshot of some numbers year to date for 25, showing quite a bit of increase in activity, and hopefully this is helpful. So, but I want to thank you for your support, because part of this redesign was, goes back to the last budget, and we needed to move some things around. And I also want to thank you for your support with the way we had to tweak some ordinances for the sweeps to be effective, to really put some teeth in that. So, so why don't we just go ahead and kick off with some of our numbers. Steve, did you want to add anything at this point, or?
No, the numbers are as follows. I mean, the sweep, we've done probably about 2/3 of the city, and we had 187 violation notices, door knockers we sent out. Here's a copy of the door knocker that we place on every door that we find stuff at the road. Okay, this is illegal. This is actually a legal notice because of the verbiage we have on the back, right to appeal and everything. But we also do send out a violation notice through the mail. We give them a specific time, and they've got to clean everything up. So we've put 187 of these out, and the city's only had to remove 2. I think this is working very well. We got zone number 2, which we go back on our re-inspect date on the 26th for that one. If you look down a little bit further, last year up to this date, 6/16 of 24, we had 1,210 open cases, 285 of which were high grass, 236 were junk and debris. Here, Chuck.
Steve, could you explain the zone areas?
The city's divided up into 8 zones. Zone number 1 is the northwest quadrant of the city. Zone number 2 goes from Cherry to Parade Street. Zone 3 goes from Parade Street to the Bayfront Highway. 4 goes from the Bayfront Highway over to Franklin Avenue. Zone 5 is
South of 26.
Yeah, it's south of 26 from, it would be Liberty Street or Poplar, whatever it is, over the next street over from Cherry, over to Parade. Zone 6 is the area from Parade Street to the Bayfront up to 26, or 12th to 26th Street. Zone 7 is 26th Street south over to State Street. Zone 8 is State Street over to the Bayfront Highway and 26th Street south.
So it's that map that you saw at
Yeah.
a press conference that I was trying to show everyone.
And I can get copies of the map to you if you want, copies of that.
We have one like posted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on the website too. Okay. So then if you look at 25, we, at this point in time, have 2,160 open cases, 291 in grass, which is really similar, but the junk and debris is up to 667 open cases for junk and debris. Now, that includes the 187 on the sweep.
Is the jump in number because it's just a shift in priority, just a different target, or we just?
I'm
is
not
it-
sure. I'm not sure what that's all about.
Well, yes, shift in priority, because going back to budget time and when we first started working together, I wanted to get back to the basics, right? We had a problem, and that was the whole purpose of having you guys help us with this, making this legal. Without that, without putting the teeth in it, I don't think people would be responding right now. That, to me, was the first thing that I wanted to really attack aggressively with both of us coming into this role. And so far, I'm really pleased with these numbers. I'm actually very surprised that we've only had to go out and clean up 2 sites out of 190 or wherever we're at.
187, right?
Yeah. So people are taking it seriously. And I think, continuing to remind them of it too is a good thing. And I'm probably going to do that again in a couple of weeks, another press conference, to just continue to reinforce this, that you are expected to take care of your property, and largely landlords and tenants, because the bulk of this is coming from investment properties. So back to your original question, it's definitely a shift in focus. I wanted this to be attacked from right out of the gate.
Have we moved forward with any of the cleanouts that landlords will put on the front lawn? I know you guys were just trying to draw up something to implement a fee.
Well, that's what we're talking
That's
about,
what
the
this
two
is.
that we
Okay.
picked up. That
Yeah.
was from that.
Yep. Yeah, there were 187 to date. We had to hang 187 of these notices, and only 2 of them had to be removed by our refuse department. And those 2 will get that fee. That'll show up on their water bill.
If a renter puts out couches, etc., is it the landlord's responsibility to call, or is it the renter's responsibility to?
So regardless of how they structure their lease, that's between the 2 of them. And that was a point that I was trying to make clear at the very beginning, is because what we would always get is this: they're pointing at each other. The point I wanted to make was, at the end of the day, it is the property owner's responsibility. Now, whether or not the property owner needs to take that up with their tenant is between them and their tenant. It should not be between them and the city. It is always ultimately the property owner. And if they need to go after their tenant, that is their business. But landlording is a for-profit business, and to use the excuse that it's not my problem, it's his problem, or he points at me, and in the meantime, we have to deal with these mountains of garbage, it's no excuse. It's a for-profit business. When you're a landlord, you ultimately are responsible for your property.
Do we have a breakdown, and I know this is really going into the weeds of it, of how many were like rental situations versus like the like homeowners in there?
We don't have a
Like,
breakdown.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
That's more of a curious.
We don't have a breakdown on it.
It's very large majority is, are yes. Yeah. I mean, we estimate probably 90% or more.
What is the inches or foots of tall grass that need to be cut, or if there's a complaint or a violation?
Is it 10 inches?
The city's ordinance says 10 inches.
10 inches.
Right, the ICC leaves it up to the individual municipality. We're 10. I think Mill Creek is 8. They're a little bit shorter than we are. So generally, what we're going to do is we get a complaint, we go out to the property. If we see that a lot of the grass is under 10, we're not gonna do anything at that point in time. We're gonna wait till the majority's over 10 inches before we're gonna send them a notice. You know, because sometimes you get those seed buds that come up, you know, and people look at that, oh, that's 12 inches. Well, yeah, but 90% of the grass is not that high. It's just a little area over here. So our inspectors will do that. They'll wait till it's over, the majority's over 10 inches before they send a notice out.
Okay.
So this is just kind of a helpful little snapshot of where we are today. And I'm really pleased. Again, this was a shift in priority. And you can see, I mean, we've got nearly 3 times the notices given for junk and debris. So, and then just when I'm driving around, you know, they're out every day, but I try to get out once a week, sometimes twice a week, and drive the zones myself. They are looking better. It's not perfect, but I think we've made pretty good progress because these guys are dealing with everything from regular trash to boats that are parked on the side of the street that are got garbage piled in them, to cars being abandoned, to just all kinds of things that they have to respond to. And you can see by the number of total cases, it's almost doubled. So, you know, with 8 inspectors total, we've got, at this point, probably over 2,200 cases going. They're busy. So.
Are you done with doing the entire city, all of the
No.
parts?
We're not.
No, we're about 2/3 of the way through. And the other reason I want to do a press conference in a couple weeks is because I want to remind folks that just because we've come through your zone doesn't mean that this goes away.
Right.
And I brought that up at our staff meeting to the inspectors, that this $1,400 abatement fee is the way it is. So if we had come through a month ago and we start to see this creeping in again, it's because it's not an official sweep. That zone's officer can still leave one of these because you guys passed that abatement fee. So that remains. But I think it's important we remind folks, and that's why in a couple weeks, when we get through most of our zones, I'll give an update, and I'll just say, you know, by the way, this really doesn't end, it's ongoing.
Right, that's here to stay.
Yeah.
All the officers have these courtesy door knockers in their vehicles, and they're instructed if they see junk at the road, put it on the door, send a notice.
Yeah, so, you know, even if it is a rental, the tenant gets that, but the owner is getting something mailed to them. Plus, that QR code on the back has a lot of different languages, so if they scan that, they're able to still understand what the notice is about.
So with the nearly doubling the rate of citations, we just passed this ordinance in what, February? Was it March?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
March, right?
So we've got a 5.5-month comparison, and you've only had this tool available for half of that. Is this something where we should expect that if we're looking at July through December, that not only is it double, I mean, we're looking at even higher numbers on this?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
At this rate? I mean, this is a pivot where these are not one-to-one comparisons still.
Probably because this did not come into effect. So, yeah, we were 6 months into the year, but it's really 3 months. I'm hopeful, though, that the number of cases actually come down a little bit because people change their behavior. That would be great. I mean, we're not trying to win a gold star here for the number. You know, if you reinforce this, they may change their behavior. I think it's happening now. You know, there's still some spots that occasionally you'll find something, but when I think back to what it was like, and you would drive a certain stretch and it was just everywhere, that seems to be gone now. There's still pockets here and there that creep up, but these guys go out and attack it, and they put these on the doorknob, and I really think that number is getting their attention. It's going to show up on your water bill. Take care of your stuff. If you make us come out and take care of it, it's going to be expensive. And So, you know, I would be okay if the number of cases go down, because that's a sign that people are changing their behavior.
Ultimate goal is to put yourselves out of a job, so, I mean, so to speak, in case
Yeah.
people are rectifying it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be citing people. We don't want to be fining people. We don't want to be charging people things. We want people to take care of their properties. I mean, I love that we only had to go and pick up 2 of them.
Right.
This was not a profit maker. This was just to cover our expense, so, but we'll see.
If if I was in office and I was running over like 26th Street, and I saw a pile of garbage, do I, that instant go do this, or do I like, hey, I'm gonna wait till tomorrow and see if this is up? How does that work?
It depends on when garbage day is. If you're running over during garbage day or the day after, you're gonna ignore it, okay? Because when they do the large item pickup, it's always the day after garbage day, so you gotta put that into consideration. So say you're up in a zone and it's Tuesday night pickup, you're over there Wednesday. Okay, you're gonna drive by, but you're gonna make a note that it's there. Thursday, you're gonna go back. If it's still there, now they got this. They got that a placard and they've got the notice coming.
Yeah, and Steve coordinated these to work around that garbage night.
Yeah.
And that potential large pickup, because we didn't want to go out there. I mean, if they're if they're setting stuff out there for a reason, give them a chance to have it taken. But, if you're on the opposite end of that schedule and it's sitting there, then it's a problem.
And they're not allowed to do tires, right?
No.
I can't remember where I was, but I saw some tires by the curb, and it's like, well, they're not going to pick those up, but thanks.
Yeah, but they're, the team's aware of the events that come open, and they try to work with everyone. I mean, if somebody has a question or that, there's a concern how we get rid of things, they're aware of when the next one's going to be and things like that, so.
Right. And as far as tires, we do know of an alley where they're dumping, we have a camera there. We haven't got anybody on film dumping yet, and it's been there for over a month, so.
Yeah.
I just read an article in the New Yorker, probably about the beginning of the month, and they talked about these kinds of issues being addressed in, I think it was Chicago. I think the article was Maxwell Gladwell. Anyways, but they talked about this being a solution for crime. That if you address stuff like this in neighborhoods, and that this was one of the biggest crime deterrents that they had, was stuff like this. So I'm really excited to not only see this as a matter of making the community more welcoming, but then also, getting this to be a community that's safer even.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to change behavior. It takes a long time to reinforce that. It took a long time to get to where we were.
Right.
Right.
And then when you start to push back on that, and they heard it from me plenty of times, but I kept saying, this is what it looks like when you give up. We're not giving up. We're going to change this behavior. Some folks may not like it, but I do. There were times, some of the days I was with them when I could make it, and the vast majority of the response was positive. Citizens coming out of their homes, opening their door, hey, thank you. I've been dealing with this forever. So, occasionally you get somebody who's mad when we're hanging one of these on their door, but by far, people have been supportive of this, so.
I mean, I grew up on the Lower East Side, and I think the lack of accountability has reinforced the bad behavior. So I like the idea that, you're going to be held accountable whether you like it or not. And we'll take care of the mess, but it's going to be a fee to your water bill. And we all know how that is. That bill can get kind of high, and people have a lot of trouble being on the payment plans, and there's a lot of drama with that system. So as someone who drives through the city, I do agree some of those problem houses have been addressed, and you can just tell that other neighbors have started cleaning up as well. So I think it's like if you see the positive change, you start doing the positive change as well. So I do agree, and sometimes it's education, so I like the fact that the QR code is on the back, and it does give you the option for the large item pickup. So a lot of people will put stuff out thinking that we're going to take it unless you put in a request. That's not going to happen. So.
Yeah, and we've tried to do it, aggressively but respectfully. When there were sites, one of these 187 sites, they were given the 14 days, and then in some cases, folks would say, I've got somebody coming, but it's another day or two. Oh, all right, that's fine. We're not here to hammer you. I mean, if you're showing that you're working with us, that's all we want. And they were very respectful about that. We had one incident a couple days ago where somebody was very rude and aggressive, and, we still try to work with them, but if they want to go this route, that's the route we're going to go. But we try not to. So, anyways, it's been a pretty good start, so. The next sheet you have, any more questions on the sweeps?
For a person who puts out a trash pro or whatever, how long are they able to keep that in their driveway?
Well, they usually have an agreement with
With
the dumpster owner.
Okay.
So you can get those for what, 5
Okay.
days, 10 days? It depends on the
I
job.
think the average, yeah, unless you make an arrangement with Pro, and it's like 2 weeks you get the dumpster for, is the average. unless
Because
you
they
make
want
an
that
arrangement.
back.
Right.
Yeah. So the next one, is this the next?
Yeah, the next one is permits, okay? So permits issued last year from 1/1/24 up to 6/16 of '24. We issued 1,631 permits, permit fees of $703, $703,631, and the total job cost that year up to that point was $71,145,258. This year, the permits are up almost 1,000 permits. We're at 2,421 permits issued from 1/1 of '25 to yesterday. The permit fees are down $567,479. The cost of the overall jobs were $44,318,316. Reason our permit fees are down is because the big jobs aren't out there this year. The big hammer jobs and stuff like that, they're not really doing anything. We do have one coming up, it was the Renaissance. Renaissance will be starting their job here sometime in the next couple of months. So the commercial jobs are down. That's why our numbers are lower as far as the cost of jobs and the permit fees. Our inspectors are super busy, as you can see by the number of permits that are out there. Zach is running all over the city with all the water changeovers. Sam is running all over, they're all over the place right now.
So yeah, they're, commercial is down, residential is up.
Yeah.
But with residential permits, those are $100 at a time, so they're much smaller numbers. But it goes back to showing the level of activity that has increased. You've got 900 more cases that they're working on. You've got 800 more permits that have been issued compared to last year at this time. So, I mean, that office is just a buzz. Every time I'm down there, to your point, our electrical and plumbing inspectors are constantly out all day trying to keep up, especially plumbing right now. All the water lines are being replaced, the old lead lines. So I think Kelly and Lindsay are processing how many a day?
Last month, they did 700 permits last month.
So every single day, they're getting another 30 to 40 coming in. So it's,
Is there a state or federal grant that's coming in for the lead? Is that something that just hit? Okay.
another, it's been there, I think another,
Around.
because I got a notice too, another phase or whatever they're
Okay.
calling it.
Thank you.
Came in. And I think they're going by area.
So I was on a walk and I was reading some of the permit signs that were downtown. How long is a permit in effect?
Depends, through the ICC, it's a year, okay? But the Pennsylvania State UCC has made it up to 5 years. But you've got to be showing progress in that 5 years. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to work on it tomorrow and do nothing for 2 years. You got to show progress every 6 months. Otherwise, it's void. If the property's sold to somebody else, that permit's done. It's void also.
Okay, thank you. And then I read one where it said it was a demolition permit, and it looked like they were demolishing, so that's inside and not like to do the building?
It could be an interior renovation permit, right. So that's got the same ruling. They've got up to 5 years. you know, as long as they're showing progress every 6 months.
Thank you, because I noticed like the different stages, because one where I walked by, it had a permit, but I walked by it like last year, and it still didn't look like there was too much going on, so, but there's some I can definitely tell. I like to peek in and see how things are going through the window, but some
careful.
haven't moved too much, I know.
Any other questions on the permits?
And I do think, one note on that, Steve and I have talked about this, we may be, well, I think we are going to be looking at fee structure for the permits, because what we've noticed, for example, with our electrical and our plumbing inspector, some of the permits, they're making multiple trips, and a lot of time is going into certain ones compared to others. And so we're going to study that, and we may have proposals at budget time to tweak these things.
The building permits go by the cost of the job. Plumbing and electric go by the devices. There's so much per device. So in commercial jobs, you may have 500-600 devices that Zach is going to go check. You know, get a score. He's over there constantly, and the permit may only be $3,000.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about on jobs, commercial jobs, trying to restructure and possibly going by the cost of what the plumbing is on that job or the electric on that job.
Yeah.
It is the responsibility of the contractor to get the permit.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the more devices, the more, I mean, you know, think of some of the larger scale projects going on right now, and just the sheer number of things that Zach has to inspect, and the, you know, the fee that we charge is, it's not paying for his time. So I think there's some things we're going to look at and propose at budget time.
Right. Right. We won't do anything with residential because that's pretty much what it is. It's, you know, they're going in, they're checking 5 or 6 devices. They may be there for 15 minutes. So as far as that goes, we can't justify charging them more than like the $105 that the permit would be for them to be there for 15 minutes, because a lot of times 1 trip, maybe 2 trips to a resident, where like the one job, I was talking to one inspector, he was at the school for 30 times this year. So,
A technical question. If I replace the elbow to my kitchen sink, technically, should I get a permit?
no. No, if you're replacing the elbow, no. If you're replacing the trap, no, you don't need to get a permit for that. If you're replacing a sink, if you're replacing any waste lines, any sanitary lines, yeah, then you'll need a permit. But just to do a trap, no, you don't need a permit for that.
I was gonna say, if you want to build an additional bathroom, you need a
Yeah,
permit.
you need a permit, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you know I'm working on that?
This next page is demolition permits, okay? Last year, for the entire year, we did a total of 79, we had a total of 79 demolition permits. 66 were full structure and 13 were accessory structure. Accessory structure would be like a garage, you know, something like that, shed, large shed. The owners were, Race had 16 of those, the land bank had 1, and 62 were private demolitions. So far this year, up until yesterday, we have 73 permits issued for demolition, 64 for full structure, 9 for accessory structure. And 10 of them were over in engineering waiting for review because they have to go, there's a 3-step process. Got to go to zoning, get through zoning, then over to engineering, then back to us, so before we can issue the permit. I just found out right before we left today that 10 was actually 13, and those 13 permits were released to our department from engineering today. So,
So we have more.
yeah, we've got more. We've got 86 right now.
Help me So everything else, you've made the numbers real easy for us. You've done the same time frame. This one's a bigger time frame to a smaller time frame. So with these demolition permits, is this something that, I would imagine if I was getting a demolition permit for work done in August, I'd be taking it out in June. And I probably wouldn't be taking out too many demo stuff in November. So is this something where, so obviously it's grown, it's something that the numbers are higher now, but are there many, is this one of those things that permits don't come out very much in September, October, November because of winter?
No, we'll get them.
It's a consistent
We'll get 'em.
year-wide?
We had
year-long thing?
permits this January because of the roof collapsing.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be permits all year long. They won't be as many
Yeah.
in late fall or early winter, but yeah, we'll still get permits issued for demolition.
Just seeing if I should be as excited about these numbers as what I'm.
It's gonna grow a lot higher than 86.
Okay.
A lot higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, we may end up with twice what we had last
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's two things. You can see like in the land bank, and I'm on the land bank, we're, you know, as we still build out capacity through there, we're continue to get more aggressive with cleaning up properties there. But it can also be a leading indicator for projects that they may end up pulling other permits because they have to tear down the old before they do the new. So just generally speaking, activity usually leads to more activity.
That was going to be my follow-up question. Are we seeing that the properties where we're getting the demolitions done, then coming in for the permits for a new structure or something else to be added? Are we
Some of
seeing
them.
something?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, a lot of times they have to clean up the old before they can
Right.
do the new.
Right. Like in the garage, the accessory structure, yes, we're seeing them rebuilding. And if you look at the owners, Race has 12, Land Bank's got 12, and 49 are private. I don't know where the next 13 are lining up as far as Race, Land Bank, or private. Not sure on that.
There was just one today on 7th and French, a place was going down.
Yeah, we've got a couple that are on the ground right now that the contractors can't get back in to clean up right now because they're doing the sewers on those streets. So you'll see a couple that are in a pile right now around the city if you go looking. And then there's the one over on, 13th and Wayne is in a pile. That had the fire. We were waiting on approval for the emergency cleanup for that one. So I believe that's all been taken care of through council, right? Thank you for that. So we'll get that one cleaned up here real quick. Any questions on this? Okay. Our final page is the rental registrations. In 2024, we had 13,757 units. In 25, we have 13,550 units. The drop in the units could be landlords selling. The new owners have not come in to register their new property. It could be landlords deciding they're not going to rent it out anymore.
Wait, can you repeat those? Oh, no, they're written up.
Yeah, it's up on
Let's see.
top. It's, yeah. You know, there's a number of reasons it could be. We don't know what it is, but.
Short-term rentals?
Well, there has been some that come into short-term rentals, yeah. I think we've got, I didn't print this one out because I didn't want us to have anybody's names out there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 227 of the units got shifted over to short-term rental.
well, surprisingly, we're only at like 23 registered for short-term rental right
Well,
now
that's
that are
another
registered.
problem.
Yeah, that will be climbing though.
And part of it could be, I mean, we're only halfway through 25. There
Right.
could still be some stragglers out there.
Right.
How do we get the word out? Like maybe people from out of state, do all states have the same type of legislation? So
Most.
they should know automatically that,
They should, but they try to avoid it as long as they can.
Yeah, because that was going to be my question, because I know you said that some new landlords might not know they have to register, so how do you
Yeah.
catch the ones that don't know?
Well, we've got, Joel is doing really good with that. He's actually brought in like 40 in the past month that are re-registered now. He's probably done 100 inspections now, BIU inspections, where they've had some issues.
Joel is our.
He's our rental.
So we created one focuses strictly on rental, so.
Can you remind me again, what is the term to be classified as a short-term rental, like the lease term? Is it, you can't go past how many days to be in the short term?
I don't think it's in the building.
I don't think it is in there. There's not a whole
From
lot.
a building
in-
code perspective, it's not.
I mean, for like, so like, I'm curious, like, how many are flipping from like long-term rentals to short-term rentals because of Airbnb and
I
stuff
think
like
it's
that?
ordinance 330. I could look
It
it up.
is
but I think-
330.
I was just
I
curious.
think it's either 30, I think it's
Like less
30
than 30
days.
days? Okay.
But it's 330. We wrote it all out
It
2
is
years ago,
330.
and I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Do you
And-
remember if we have people having to live in their place for so long too with the short term? Like, are they able to have it vacant so many times, so much? I can't remember how that one worked.
No, I don't recall that part.
And one other note I want to make on the rental, they've noticed, even though this number looks like it's down, since we started the sweeps, they think there was actually more folks coming in because they see that we're watching and that we're out there. So the late fee revenue may come down because I think we're getting more people to be compliant. That was the feedback we got from Felicia and Andrea's. When we started these, they're like, wow, all of a sudden there was a bump. And they probably figured, we're out there, we're looking a little more closely now. So
The late
I-
fee is pretty punitive, if I recall.
I
correctly. That's
wouldn't
the
be
other part.
surprised if the late fee revenue drops, which is fine, because that means they're complying. So,
And these numbers, the other numbers you're seeing these are the registration fees that were collected last year above and beyond what we normally get. These are late fees. If you'll see like 2015, it's all the way down to 24. And you see figures next to it. Last year, for the entire year, they collected $142,000 in back fees. As of yesterday, they collected $55,945. So halfway through the year, that's what they brought in additionally to the normal rental fees. So, we are going after the ones that are delinquent. I've got one coming in a couple weeks. It's got a substantial fee that he owes, and he's coming in to pay it because he sold a couple of his properties.
Do we have anything to say if the landlord takes a deposit, he takes my deposit, let's just say $50, interested in renting that apartment, and then Mo comes in maybe an hour later and says, ooh, I like this place, and Mo gives him $50 down for a deposit, and that goes on for 5 or 6 different individuals. And then he rents it to one of the 5. Is he obligated to return the 50?
absolutely.
Just not the rental application.
Right, right.
We just did that ordinance last month.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not city law. That's, I think, state law. That's a renter's rights.
Absolutely.
Because I had a visitor today that brought it to my attention. And I said, well, meeting with the right folks to ask tonight.
And if that does happen, I think that'd be a great conversation to bring to code, because that is within, it's a state law violation in addition to some other things, but absolutely make sure that, I think, code knows. so they can-
And then that gets into more of a legal process because it's not actually building code related, but.
I think it'd be more under if anywhere that licensing, that renter
Right,
licensing.
but if
part of
it's
it.
something that, somebody who starts doing this and owns property in the city, they may not be somebody who actually registers their property, but if they are, we can flag that and say, you're behaving badly here. Yeah, and we had a story earlier in the year, it's a young woman, right, prepaid like 3 or 4 months worth. Yeah, and this was back in January, it's when you and I were first in this position, and it was like on a day where it was like 12 degrees out, and everything was frozen solid, pipes were frozen. Couldn't get a hold of the landlord. She paid her rent up through March, I think, wasn't it? And she said, I can't get a hold of my landlord, I have no heat, I have no water, because the pipes are frozen solid. And so whoever this individual was took the money, and then, you know, and it breaks your heart. It's just, we're limited with what we can do, and that becomes more of a legal issue at that point, but, yeah, it happens, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah, those are long-term.
But I would think that we're probably gonna maybe have some stragglers come in.
Oh, I'm sure
You know,
we
we're
will.
only halfway through the year, so. Yep.
Are we watching if they're paying their taxes as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that's something I check even with, somebody makes a bid on a land bank property. But yes, they have a column for that, don't they, with the rental registration? I mean, they're tracking, if somebody comes in to pay that, maybe you can answer that better than I can, but they check these things. I know I do.
I believe the girls do check that, yes, yes.
I don't see all of them, but
Right.
they're tracking it too.
So basically, they wouldn't be allowed to rent if their taxes aren't paid up, or how does that work? I
Well,
wonder.
it depends on the cycle, because when you register, you're good for 2 years. Your tax, I mean, you can go 2 years before a tax sale would become an issue too, so it would depend on the timing. Somebody could be behind on their taxes and still be registered, depending on how they fall in that cycle. So, you know, from our perspective, it's more about the safety and the health and safety of the unit. If they're chronically behind and they're at the point where they've gone past 2 years and it's now a tax sale issue, we're definitely going to see that because it's going to be listed for tax sale. You have some folks that they get right up to the edge and then they pay just enough and then they're good for a while. You know, are those ones that we want to boot out of the system? I mean, you'd have unintended consequences then, because now you're potentially kicking people into the street. And the, you know, tenant may not have had any. Right. I mean, if it wasn't their fault, do we want to actually displace them at this point? So it's a little bit of a gray area.
So, but we did update some rental registration legislation on that, so that they have to be up to speed on all of their, you know, their sewer bill, their water bill, taxes, so that they can be registered. And then if they're not up to speed on those, then they can't register. And if they don't register, then the late fee was also increased as a penalty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you start getting it compounded here for bad actors in the landlording business.
Yeah.
And we did all of that like in the last 3 years in legislation.
It's in
especially
between
this year.
it's in between the periods where they could fall behind on something, and we're not going to see that in between, but it eventually will catch up with them.
Some of the comparable numbers that I would be interested in, and I know we're not going to have them right now, is how many have gone from long-term to short-term rentals? How many have we torn down in demolition versus how many are going back up? More so as we are looking to address the housing crisis that's at a national level, not just, you know, we're not unique in what we're experiencing in Erie, to see like as many as we're taking down, as many are going to short term, how many are we rebuilding, so we can kind of get, I know that there's a lot of hands in right now, like through the land bank, through the redevelopment authority and some other initiatives, just to start to compare some of those numbers, and how are we doing with people applying for the LRTA, you know, we've got some big things that are happening. Just curious to kind of see the overlap. And that won't all come from this department either.
Yeah, well, it made me think of
Coordination.
another thing too. We're starting to see more blight properties being rescinded.
Yes,
And
we are.
and I think
We
it's
are.
because the cost of building new is prohibitive. So now you've got people taking another look, and they're like, maybe I can salvage this. And we've noticed that at the blight meetings each month, that Jake is rescinding as many or more than he's declaring now, which was not the case before. Usually it was just declarations. You'd go into that meeting and there would be declarations. And now he goes in and there's maybe 3 or 4 declarations each month, and 3 or 4 being rescinded. So people are looking at it and saying, it doesn't make sense for me to try to build at $300 a square foot. If I can save this, the economics of it are different than what it was a couple years ago.
You're seeing the potential in the old houses.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Chris, you can give an update on the home opportunity program too.
I'm sorry, on
Tyler
what?
was asking
The home opportunity.
about new homes being built on the demo lots.
Oh, yes, land bank. So what we started doing is the home opportunity initiative where, and you've been in these meetings, so you've heard about this already, where if you commit to build new construction on a land bank lot, you're going to be refunded all of that acquisition cost, the cost of the land, the cost, the legal cost to clear title, all of that. So if you buy a land bank lot for, let's say, $10,000, plus you got $5,000 in legal fees, at the end of the day, the land bank will reimburse you when a certificate of occupancy is issued. So when you're done, we'll reimburse you for that. So you're going to get the land for free. Of course, LERTA was already on the books, so that's the second component. And then the third component is we were offering to finance it at 0%. So we've done this for 2 months now. We have 3 new, we just approved 2 yesterday. We had one that we approved a month prior, new constructions coming in. And I think when this is up and running at full speed, I think we can probably expect 20 to 25 new builds a year, which is a modest number, but it's marginal. It's adding to supply. Anything we can do to add to supply, even if it's marginal, I'll take it. And we're doing it in a way that's not really costing us anything. So if I have to sacrifice $5,000 to $10,000 for a lot coming into the land bank, I will do that all day long to get new constructions in the city. We haven't had new houses built here in a long time. In the last 2 months, we've got 3 coming in. We've got 2 or 3 rehab in addition to the new constructions. So there's 6 projects that we've approved in the last 2 months, and they're taxable. Because when we look at bids that come in at land bank, we've made it clear, I've made it very clear. Priorities are this: owner occupied over rental investor,
That's right.
and obviously taxable over tax exempt.
That's right.
And so if you check those 2 boxes and you come in with a strong proposal, we'll sell you the lot and give you the money back when you're done. And we've had very good turnout with both new construction, with actual bids, legitimate pre-approval letters from banks, and then also rehab sales. We just sold one on East Avenue, and we just approved one yesterday on Plum. So it's all about tipping the economic scale, and where do you find that point now where it's worth it? And LERTA by itself wasn't quite enough. So I'm hopeful that this does it. You sat in on these, and we're seeing activity now. It used to just be like crickets. Like it was, maybe 1 or 2 lots every once in a while would sell, and somebody would use it as a community garden, which really, just turns into a mess, and then we have to take it back again. Now we've got people buying, building, rehabbing, doing things with these lots. So I'm very excited. And 20 to 25 a year, that is my goal. It's modest, but I want to be real. I don't want to set a goal that's not realistic. If we can get 20 to 25 new builds a year through that little piece of it, that helps.
And this is infill. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing is, if you're looking at, that's about 0.5% a year development, which is modest, but infill is the hardest thing to get development on. So, I mean, if you're doing 0.5% on infill, you're actually getting some pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all marginal. Again, it's marginal supply that's being added back to the market, which ultimately helps with prices. And but every lot is different. Every bid is different. Some of these lots that come in, and you've got a neighbor on each side, and they're both bidding on the same lot. In some instances, I may propose that we split the lot in half, and now they can both get a driveway. It may not be worth building on, or because of where it's located or whatever. So I approach each one of these differently. But if building is a realistic possibility, and we have interested parties in the private sector, it's private sector capital that wants to build, then just give them the lot. After a couple of years of taxes, it'll more than pay for itself.
And do you think the zoning will change eventually so we can have manufactured homes on land?
I mean, we're going the direction of smaller, I mean, the proposals for Libby's Land Bank, for example, these deals we just put together, they're all proposing like 12 to 1,400 square feet. That's the new norm now. I think we're going to be moving in that direction. You know, building code has to keep up with that. I think we will have to take a look at zoning. I really would like to, the point I made where you have neighbors sometimes bidding on the same property, as much as I want everything to be sold and built on, that's not going to happen either. So we need to look at, it's more of like a quality of life thing, where if you can have 2 or 3 of these lots in each neighborhood and now you've created parking, you've made their lives easier. And so can you have communal parking? Can we have 2 land bank lots next to each other? I haven't found anything that says we can't, where you can create now a parking area for that block.
And the streets are cleared,
Right,
or at least
streets-
a little bit more free.
Right, and that ties into less junk and debris. Like, people think differently when they have those little changes that make their lives easier. So that's something that I want, and I'm looking at that through the lens of the land bank. Like, okay, should I sacrifice, I say sacrifice, but I really want a house built on here. But if I can get both of these neighbors a driveway, how does that change the neighborhood? So when I'm driving through there and looking at the agenda, I'm like, well, maybe this is better than done that way.
What?
Excuse me.
Go ahead, dear.
So people send me things, and tiny homes can be built, octagon homes, all different kinds of homes, but they're not, you know, like the traditional homes. They're tiny homes. Yeah.
But we have to be careful.
We
with
have to
that.
wait for the codes.
Yes, the 2021 code has to catch up with that. There is a subsection in there for that. You can retrofit tiny homes. It just depends on how much you want to spend
Right.
to do that. You can do that now, but what we don't want are people just going to Home Depot, buying a shed, throwing it on a lot, and running an extension cord to it, which is what you're going to have, and then they're going to catch fire. So it's not whether you can do it or not. It's, are you willing to do it right? Are you willing to retrofit this properly, insulate it properly, bring the services to it properly, and not just, like I said, run an extension cord to it or put a little propane heater in there. So it has to be done thoughtfully and correctly.
So when you ask about the manufactured homes thing, like, if it has a foundation, we have prefab houses that are getting built on Cherry Street. There was that
Right.
3-unit, and
Right.
it came in like 3
I saw
pieces,
it,
and they just
yeah.
bound it together. And then what you're talking about with the smaller and tiny homes, we addressed that in zoning reform that we did last year, and we also did that in the form of 8 accessory dwelling units. And then what he's talking about, the building code, the particular one he's talking about from 2021, that's Appendix Q. And you can read the descriptions as to what's allowed through that. Like, most of the things you're talking about, we probably allow now in the last 3 years.
And Appendix AQ, for them to use it, has to be adopted by council. Otherwise, we can't use any appendix in any of the code books unless it's adopted by council.
Jake said that it's a rule of thumb that usually would get approved. So if we have to adopt it formally, that's cool. We'll do that very soon if that's how it has to be done, because I'm sure we have the support for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, like I said, going into budget season, we're going to have some things, maybe not directly tied to the budget, but some things we're going to propose for you to think about.
Do we inspect the tiny homes?
Well,
Yeah, we will be.
yeah,
The ones that are sitting up on 16th Street, they've been given the steps they have to take. They've recently agreed that they were going to take those steps. And when they do get the plans submitted to BIU, and BIU accepts the plans, and, you know, everything's per code, then our inspectors will go and inspect what they're supposed to inspect. Scott will do the framing inspections, Sam will do electrical, Zach will do the plumbing inspections.
Okay, so, my understanding, there are families or one or two people living in those tiny homes currently.
I've been up there a couple of times and I've not seen any evidence at all.
Okay,
I have not seen any evidence at all.
good.
Some of them have floors on them. I guess there's gonna be two-story. Some will be two-story, some will be single-story. So the ones that are gonna be part of the two-story, they don't have a floor. They're just held together
Right.
for traveling and, when they decide to set them. So someone could be in there, but I've not seen any evidence of it.
Now, I've seen some, I want to call them sheds, but at Erie County Prison on Ash, I've seen in their yard, it looks like tiny homes. But again, that could be some program they have for the inmates, of course. I'm not sure what's
In the
going on.
back or in the front?
Just before you go under the underpath, there's
I'll
about
have to check
4 or
that out.
5 of them there. I don't know if they use them as a shed, but they look like tiny homes.
I'll have to check
And
that
it
out.
could be, a program, good behavior. You go stay out there, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to drive by that. The one thing we put a checklist together when we met with the folks from the county, because this is going to, it's not going to go away, right? This is the trend. And so even though we don't have 2021 building code, we're using 2018, we were able to still come up with a checklist of here's the things you need to do to make this right, for this to pass. And so we have a checklist now, whereas before there was really no guidance on that. So we give that to folks, like if you get through this list, now it's allowed. But if you skirt this, it's not. And so, I asked Steve to come up with what do we need to do so that if somebody does want to live in one of these, what does that look like? So it goes back to the question of, do you want to invest in that to get it to the point where it needs to be, and not just, plop a shed down. And
Yeah.
so we have a checklist now we give people.
Great.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pro tiny home because a tiny home for a homeless dad and son is a big plus, but it has to be right, under
Exactly.
code, et cetera.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Andy and I got together, and we comprised a list that they need to do to be a tiny home, what they've got to do.
I've been in one of them, and I'm not going to do a jumping jack in them, I can tell you that. But if you had nothing, it is something.
Yeah.
I mean, wait, you're talking about, I'm gonna be an empty nester in 5 years. I'd be down for a tiny home.
Well, we raised the roof.
So if we have another moment, just real quick, I want to go over a couple things that we're probably going to be bringing to you even before budget time. That's if we have a couple more minutes. We've been getting a lot of calls about broken elevators.
About what?
Broken elevators.
Oh, yes.
So
for sure.
there's two things to this. Number one, elevators are licensed and inspected by the state. These guys have actually very limited dominion over that. So there's this idea out there that just call code and they'll be able to fix it. We actually don't have authority on elevators. Now, we can go out and post something uninhabitable, but then you're potentially creating unintended consequences where now where's everybody going to go? So, we don't want to just jump all the way from one end all the way to the other with a sledgehammer and take an extreme action. So that's why sometimes it seems like it's frustrating and we're limited with what we can do. They can post a building, but then where are we putting everybody? So it's case by case. We do respond, but it is the state that licenses elevators and inspects them. It is not the city code. Now,
A number that we can give individuals to call versus calling us?
They can call L&I, Labor and Industry, and ask to be transferred to the elevator division. They're probably going to get an answering machine.
They
may
can
or
also
may not
work
get
with
a
their,
call back.
They can also work through their state reps. They'll get a response that way. When there was one of the last elevator issues, I was getting calls from our reps, wondering how they can help. So we're limited with what we can do. That's number one. But number two, I think we should look at, like we did with this. This got people moving. I think what you're having happen now, elevators are very expensive, extremely expensive. And in the city, we've got elevators everywhere that are 50, 60, 70 years old because they don't want to invest in new ones. So what happens is they break all the time. They can't get parts. So, you call them up, you gotta get your elevator fixed. Well, I'm waiting for a part, or they can't find a part. Well, that's not acceptable. You have to get it running. And much like this spurred people into action, I want to do something that spurs them into action. Because what's happening now is our fire department will go and run to a scene or to a property multiple times a day, every single day. And the property owner may say they're trying to fix this, but in the back of their mind, they know their folks are still getting service from us. We need to make it so that it maybe incentivizes that property owner to get this thing fixed, and if you can't get it fixed, get a new one. Because you can't have the fire department go into your property 5 or 6 times a day, which is quite literally happening right now on one site where 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. And then what's going to happen when there's a real emergency and we've got a crew of 5 or 6 of our guys responding because you still have not gotten a new elevator put in? So even though we don't inspect and license them, I think we can incentivize them to invest in your building because you're kind of leaning on the city to come and save your tenants. And, we obviously would continue to do that. But if they had to reimburse the city every time, they might be a little more aggressive about getting these things fixed. So I've met with the solicitor, assistant solicitor about this. He's researching some language. And I don't know what it looks like, but maybe after like the second or third call for the same exact building and the same exact elevator, maybe you start reimbursing the fire department every time they've got to go out there. And, if you have to start reimbursing the fire department $1,000 every time you pull one of our trucks out with their crew, it might light a little incentive on you to get going. So I don't know what you think about that, but there's a problem. And there's so many of them in the city, and they're all old, and nobody's investing in their building, like reinvesting.
And I think that that fine should be substantial. Shouldn't be 100, 200, 300. No, it should be substantial. If you hit them hard enough, they'll get it fixed.
That's right.
Because senior citizens are calling me on 2 of the buildings in our city. One of them has 2 elevators. They finally fixed one, but you need both of them working because you have a lot of seniors there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can't use the elevator, or you shouldn't, if there's a fire. But if it's a situation where that individual needs to go to the hospital, and they're on the 4th or 5th floor, how you get the gurney upstairs?
Yeah,
So,
and I go back to not only is it expense for the city, which is not fair to the other taxpayers, but it is going to happen eventually, where a true emergency happens at the same exact time that we have a crew out there carrying somebody down the stairs. And that's just, can't have that. So, maybe a few more weeks that we're working with the solicitor to try to come up with some kind of language, but it's going to be like this got people moving. The $25, $100 quality of life ticket doesn't do it. This does it. And the way you do it by attaching it to their water bill. So I want to try to get these property owners to do what they have to do, so that we're not rescuing their residents on the 5th floor, the 9th floor all the time, because they won't fix their stuff.
Well, I mean, honestly, a lot of these elderly and disabled people are ADA, recipients. So the fact that the elevator is not operating means you're not ADA compliant, and that's an issue itself. I used to work in Mid-City Towers, and half of the time that one elevator that did work stopped working, and I would have to go up to the 11th floor by foot to reach my 62-year-old client, and hope he didn't have an appointment that day because he's not coming down the stairs. So
Yeah, it can't-
it's an
can't
issue,
have that.
it's a concern, and it needs to be addressed. Because like you said, they're really old buildings, really old elevators, and the excuse of, oh, we ordered a piece, it just hasn't come, or we can't find the piece is not a good enough
It'll reach a
excuse.
point where you have to put a new unit in. You have to put a whole new unit in.
Right.
And so, it's the same principle as this. It is ultimately the property owner's responsibility, even if your tenant did it.
Right.
It's the property owner's responsibility. So that we're going to put something together for you. And then one other area real quick, we may be revisiting the fees for illegal work that they're catching. We don't think it's really enough to deter people from doing things. Right now, it's very
$100
minimal.
quality of life ticket is what we
Like the
could
dumping
issue.
that happens in the
Yeah.
tire.
Well, no, illegal, like electrical, plumbing, people going and doing things.
We know one individual who's using his master's license and getting permits for journeyman.
Side job.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to catch them in the act, but if you raise that fine to a level, they may not want to take that chance.
Right.
So,
Is that electrical?
Maybe.
I'll talk to
Well,
you
these-
about not being recorded.
they catch examples of all kinds of things, so.
Yeah. I want to say a couple more things too. While we're all doing this, we've got our permit techs, our 3 trade inspectors, our licensing clerk, 2 code officers, my demolition coordinator, and the rental registration are also learning and helping with the new software we're getting. So they're doing that plus all their normal work. And we're being told that that new software is going to roll out on July 22nd. It's going to be live. And they're working on a public-facing portal because we found out that that wasn't included in this round, but we're making them include the public-facing portal in this round.
What does that mean?
So that if you want to get a permit or you want to pay your licensing fee from your house, you can do it. You can go online and pay it instead of coming down to the office. So, and another thing, if anybody wants to join us on a ride around, you're all welcome to come. I can set you up with any code officer, take a ride around and see what they do. You're all welcome.
Is the ride around different than a drive-by?
A lot different. Yeah, we don't do drive-bys.
I'll ride around.
Okay. Yeah, you're all welcome, so just let me know, and we could take a couple of you at a time.
Yeah. And I just want to say, again, thank you for your support. We shuffled things up last budget time. You entrusted us to move things around a little bit. I couldn't be happier with what Steve's doing on a day-to-day basis. Of course, Andy's still giving us, he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's still giving
I
us.
call Andy a lot.
Yeah, he's still giving us guidance, and Steve's still learning from him, but he's the chief of the boat, and he's there every day, and he's handling it superbly. And we've got, in my opinion, these guys are marching to the same tune now, and but we still have a few things I want to iron out, and those things I mentioned, and I think we'll bring those to you and when the time's right, so.
Your department, this department, is a very, very important arm of the city. Very, very important. And we cannot do it without you. It's a health issue. It's a cleanliness issue. And we all need to just jump on board and make it work. Anyone have any other questions for code enforcement?
I want to say thank you, and also, we need your help, too. We appreciate all that you do for us, too. Thank you. Thank you.
We're here for you. If there's nothing else, this session is adjourned.